Mexico's Corner. From the Washington Times, record number of women, Republican women, I should say, set to join Congress. House Republicans beat expectations of a wipeout election day thanks to a wave of conservative women running for the first time and winning. An historically high number of women will serve the next Congress, with at least 140 from both parties elected so far, according to the Center for American Women in Politics. Republicans broke records with at least 17 new women joining their ranks this cycle, crushing their previous record of 9 new congresswomen. At least 35 Republican women are expected to serve when the 117th Congress convenes in January. The highest previous total was 30. Nearly every seat that Republicans flipped this cycle was won by women. There are still a handful of tight races that haven't been called, which reminds me, I want to digress a little. I live in upstate New York. This is Congressional District New York 22, previously held by Claudia Tenney, now held by Anthony Brindisi. She's trying to get her seat back this year. She was ahead by almost 30,000 votes, 30,000. And because of the ridiculous mail-in nonsense, the kids from New York City get to drive up here and go to school. They're not even from this community. They're not permanent residents, but they get to vote here. And many colleges up here in this area, including in Binghamton, told their students, listen, you take a picture of you mailing your mail-in ballot, even if you live downstate, we'll give you extra credit. It's ridiculous and it's wrong and it's asinine. It's totally unfair. I know this is politics, but this is ridiculous. This is what happens when you have a one-party government. But I digress. I believe the Republican Party is much more diverse than what reflects on the floor, and this election proved it, said House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, California Republican. When you look at the results and the outcome, it's only in this room where you get a new record number of women, more diverse, and only makes us stronger. That's what makes America strong. Kevin, I cringed a little bit on that one. Please don't use the progressives' talking points. The diversity automatically makes you stronger. They won because they were good candidates, not because they were women. Even though this article is about women, they were good candidates, period. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi also applauded the growing ranks of Republican women. Yeah, I'll bet. Oh, boy. I'd love to have been the fly on the wall when they brought up that subject. But anyway, I'm excited that we have more women in Congress. That doesn't mean we have shared values. But hopefully we can find common ground on some issues, the California Democrats said. Well, I hate to sound crude, but that's bullshit. Pure, unadulterated bullshit. There are some of the incoming Republican congresswomen who prevailed in the hardest-fought races. Nicole Malotokis, New York District 11. One of the most recent Republican victors, Representative Max Rose, conceded the New York race on Thursday. Mr. Rose won his seat in 2018 by flipping a Republican seat as part of the blue wave that gave Democrats the House majority. Ms. Malotokis was first elected to the New York State Assembly in 2010 as daughter of immigrants. Now, you're going to see this pattern a lot as we go through this list, either first generation or immigrants. Her father came from Greece, and you can stop the video and read the rest. Beth Van Dunn, Texas District 24, the former mayor of Irving, who held down a vulnerable Republican district, fending off a challenge from Democrat Candace Valenzuela. She replaced retiring Representative Kenny Merchant in the long-time GOP seat. And it gives you some of the stats from there. She won even though she worked in the position in the Housing and Urban Development as a regional manager on the Trump administration. Good for her. Victoria Sparks, Indiana District 5. She was a state senator held the line for Republicans in the suburban Indiana district, succeeding Republican Susan Brooks. As an immigrant born in Soviet Ukraine, there you go. Another one. You can read about her race. Stop the video here. Michelle Steele, California 48. Michelle Steele, member of the Orange County Board of Supervisors, toppled Harley Rhoda to win back a seat that Democrats flipped in 2018. See the seats they flipped. And if you remember, in the part of Southern California that's very conservative, I think there were 8 or 9 Republican congressmen that had huge leads. And their opponents basically conceded. Even the major networks called the Republicans the winner. And mysteriously out of nowhere, all these emergency and absentee ballots came in and they all lost. This is absurd. But the Republicans got most of the seats back, so I guess I'm grateful for that. Ms. Steele, a Korean immigrant, is one of the first Korean American women elected to Congress. She said her win demonstrated the diversity within the GOP. Well, use a different word. That word is now, every time you say it, I put a quarter in the swear jar. My accent is part of my story, and I'm proud to be one of the first Korean American women in Congress. Good for you. Good for you. You can read some about her. We can read on Stephanie Bice, Oklahoma 5th. And you want to pause the video and read about, here we go. She's also the first Iranian American elected to Congress. The Republicans are a lot more, have different ethnic groups. I don't want to say the D word because I have to put a quarter in the swear jar, than the Democrats. But Republicans don't see your sex or your race first. They see it third or fourth down the line. They see how you carry yourself. They see how intelligent you are, and they see how committed you are, long before they look for the rest. Yvette Herrell, a staunch ally of President Trump, toppled another top target for House Republicans by defeating Representative Tori Small. Ms. Herrell, an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation, is the first Republican American Indian woman to be elected to Congress. You're seeing a lot of this. Immigrants, Native Americans, the Republican Party, thanks to Trump, their umbrella has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Here's another one. Michelle Fischbach. Another sizable one for Republicans. Michelle Fischbach defeated vulnerable but long-serving Democrat Colin Patterson, who spent 30 years in Congress, but now represents staunch Trump territory. She won with almost 54% of the vote. And we can go on and on. Maria Salazar, Florida 27th. Was one of the earliest victories for House Republicans on election night, defeating Democrat Donna Shalala in a rematch of 2018. You remember her? I believe she was a cabinet member under Bill Clinton in the big Democrat wave of 2018 because the Republicans kept screaming about Obamacare, repeal and replace. Well, they didn't have a replacement. And then everybody saw that those 17 votes to repeal Obamacare when they're in the minority was pointless showboating, because when push come to shove, the Republicans didn't have a plan. That's why they got killed in 2018. But these seats are coming back, and you see, flipped in 2018, now flip back in 2020. You see a pattern here. Ms. Sella, a former TV journalist, worked for Telemundo, CNN Espanol, and Univision. The race is expected to be competitive. Pollsters scored is at least leading Democrat according to Election Day. Ms. Salazar's win was a boon to the GOP. She toppled yet another incumbent who flipped the red seat in 2018. Another pattern again. Ashley Henson, Iowa, 1st District. I should give you some of her background here. Nancy Mace, South Carolina, District 1. And we can go through the whole list here. And it's really great. It's really great that these Republicans first got to get a lot of the seats that they lost in 2018 back. If I do my math right, I think if there was 6 more flips or 7 more flips, the Republicans would have eked out a majority, but they didn't make it. But I'm hoping there's enough moderate Democrats left, which is kind of an endangered species, to maybe side with the Republicans on some issues. We'll see. If the new speaker, well, it looks like it'll be Nancy Pelosi, but, oh, God, what's that saying? You look like you're insane when you do the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I don't know how they picked her as speaker. I really don't. But that's what they did. Anyway, folks, that's a record number of Republican women set to join Congress, which I'm grateful for as a conservative person. I hope and pray that they stay there for the next cycle as well, because in 2 years, the Republicans are going to wipe out the Democrats. All that's going to be left are Republicans and progressives and leftists. The moderate Democrats, you're probably not listening to my channel because I'm a small channel. But by some fluke of luck, somebody knows a Democrat that's a moderate in Congress. Tell them to switch parties. Do it now, especially if they're in tight races. Do it now before you're chucked out. Anyway, folks, that's my opinion for today. Until next time, goodbye and good luck.